Hey guys, and welcome to my vlog! My name is Erin and I am a writer, and this is a defense of romance. So let's start at the beginning and talk about what romance is. In the romance genre, your main plot has to be focused on the romance, and you have to have an emotionally satisfying ending, which usually means a happily ever after, or the alternative, happy for now. That's it. Everything else might have a romantic element to it, but it's not a romance. If you have a romance as a main plot, but one of the partners dies, one of them turns out to be a cheater, they get divorced, whatever, then you've got yourself a love story, not a romance. I've noticed a lot of people speak very flippantly about romance, and I think that is mostly because romance is primarily written by women. It is written for women, and it is consumed by women. And as we all know, society loves to shit on everything that makes women happy. I've seen a lot of times where people think that the happily ever after ending can be really limiting, but speaking as someone who is coming to romance after writing other genres, it is the opposite. The expectation of happiness is liberating. In other genres, there's almost the expectation of pain and misery, and not that those don't appear in romance, but as a writer, you are freed from the pressure of giving your characters an unhappy ending. My characters don't have to die. They don't have to suffer in the same way that they do in other genres. And it is a relief to pick up a book and not have to worry about my OTP kicking the bucket. I want to know that I'm going to be emotionally satisfied at the end of the book. And if you are pitching something as a romance, and that doesn't happen, people are gonna be pissed off. The other wonderful thing about romance and the happily ever after is that it really lets women explore their sexuality and nuanced relationships without being punished for it. I don't know if you've noticed, but in a lot of other genres, if a woman has sex, she's gonna die. That doesn't happen in this genre. I'm not going to lie and say that there are not problematic elements in this genre and that it has not been an issue for the romance genre. But I think I'm also pretty safe in saying that romance is changing. Part of the reason that there are unhealthy romances in this genre is due to the society in which they were being written. A lot of the biggest names in romance were born in the 40s and 50s. And the historical context that they grew up in is obviously going to have a huge influence on their work. And newer romance writers, chances are they grew up reading the books that were put out by these older generations. So naturally, they're going to take some of their writing cues from that. And what I've noticed in particular with books that are kind of 2010 is the lack of enthusiastic consent, or the concept that arousal equals consent. By our current standards, if you don't have enthusiastic consent, you are tipping over into the rape zone. But when the bigwigs of romance were writing these stories, the sexual agency of women looked a lot different than it does today. When you had the men in these stories moving forward with things without getting enthusiastic consent, it absolved women of guilt for wanting to have sex. It's a very complex issue that I am not going to go into right now, but it definitely has a lingering effect on the genre. The point is that our personal contexts are going to be different from the context in which these books were written. And much like books in every genre, concepts are going to become outdated for modern audiences. If you are making this argument against romance, then I really hope you're also doing the same for other genres too. You have to remember that older romance writers were writing within their own context. They are writing within their own experience and the experiences of women around them. And it's kind of terrible to shit all over them for writing what was going on at the time. Things have gotten better, and the evolution of romance really reflects that. Healthier romances are coming into the genre as our society changes, as our society is asking for these things. Writers are learning about them at the same rate as everyone else. And you also have to consider that writing a book is not an instant thing. It's not like a new concept can take society by storm and then the next week there's a book on it out. Books take time. And so sometimes, even if they are modern for when they are being written, by the time they come out, they may not be anymore because society shifts quickly. And that's not to say that there are not already healthy relationships in books that are out there that are older. I have read many of them. And I have also read a lot where a single line will completely ruin all of my enjoyment for them because it was just not something that aligned with my modern sensibilities. If they were books that I had read before, it's a product of my personal growth that I notice these issues now, because a lot of times you read things and at first you don't necessarily notice the problematic aspects. And if you go back and read something again and you're like, holy crap, how did I not notice this? That's because you grew as a person, and congratulations to you for that. If you encounter a story that has a problematic element, I implore you to look at the publication date first. If it's pre-2015, consider the context in which it was written. I know that doesn't seem like that long ago, but we have made huge strides as a society in the last 3 years. You can also consider that maybe that problematic element is not reflective of the genre as a whole. If you stumble across something that makes you cringe, it could just be the product of bad writing, or bad editing, or the publisher pushing something it thinks people want. It is not necessarily an inherent issue with the concept itself or the genre. Romance as a genre is crucially important, especially as it continues to evolve with our society. They are stories about healing, empowerment, and personal growth. Men in romance are not allowed to be mediocre. They must be heroes, or they must become heroes in order to earn the love of the heroine. There is no settling for shitty partners in romance. They deal with important concepts just like any genre, whether that is dealing with and healing from abuse, equality, consent, and balanced relationships. These books teach women that they deserve better. And honestly, I think that's why a lot of men get really uppity about them. Fiction influences the world as much as the world influences fiction. If women learn about proper consent and that there is nothing shameful about exploring their sexuality and expecting their partners to be attentive, decent human beings, then how will the lazy, mediocre slut-shamers get wives? Answer: they won't. Oh, tragedy. The fantasy of romance does not have to just exist on the page. People deserve decent partners, and if you think that's unrealistic, then I would maybe examine yourself a little bit. The heroines of romance win. They get their happy ending, and it's not without work. Romance novels put their characters through their paces just like every other genre. But the difference is that there is a positive outcome for them. And in a world that is busy stomping all over the desires of what women want, it's a genre that we desperately need. Thank you guys so much for watching. That is all I got for you today. All of my social media links will be in the description below, and I will see you next week with another video. Bye!